The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Hello and welcome to the Big H Podcast. My name is Mike Heise, and today, Village of Hilton and Town of Parma historian, Mr. Dave Crumb, will be running our episode. Dave, I'm going to pass things over to you.
Hey, thanks very much, Mike. Pleasure to be here again. We really enjoy these podcasts and have fun learning new things. Our guest today is Martha Jane Weiner. And Martha grew up in Hilton back in the 40s and 50s. She and I were friends. Our parents were friends. She's been in both Canandaigua and Las Vegas for well over 50 years, going back and forth, but she always manages to come to Hilton every year for a visit and catch up with old friends. So we'll have a nice conversation today and learn a little bit about what Martha's been doing over the past 50 years. So Martha Jane, she's Martha Jane in Hilton, Marty in Las Vegas.
Martha Jane is fine.
So you're on. First, we'd like to ask you about some memories of growing up in Hilton. What things you might remember and want to share with us?
Well, I remember living in my grandmother's house on West Avenue. Growing up there, my mother died when I was 1.5. So my father and my grandmother Roberts raised me until I was about 5, and my father remarried and married Helen Rowley, who became Helen Rowley Heffron. And I got a stepsister.
And that was Jan.
Yes, Jan Heffron.
Now, Myron Roberts, your grandfather, I know you didn't know him, but he was supervisor of the town of Parma for around 25 years and did a lot of positive things for the town back in probably the early 1900s up through probably 1940. I believe he put the waterworks through. What are some of the things your father and your grandmother told you about him?
They didn't tell me too much about him. We never talked about him that much.
Okay. And I don't know that much either, other than I think he was responsible for putting the waterworks
Yes,
through.
I've heard that.
The pumping station down in Hilton,
Right.
The water tower, getting city water up into the village.
Correct.
Because up until 1915, I don't think they had anything but wells up here and cisterns. And after 1915, we had city water, as they called it. Came right out of Lake Ontario. There was a pipe that ran, I believe, 2 miles out into the lake so that they got the real fresh water. It came into the pumping station, which is down at Hilton Beach at the end of 259, and that water was purified down there. Irv Ferguson got the job in 1915, and he held it until he died in 1957, watching the pumping station, making sure the pressure was right and that the purifiers and everything was working correctly. After he passed, I believe your Uncle Pete Rowley became that man.
Yes, he did.
Any thoughts, any comments about Pete?
Oh, Uncle Pete was the best. When my father passed in 58, he and my cousin Jane, who's now deceased, and my Aunt Marion, they're all gone now, but they were what kept me going.
Yeah, Hilton was a great little community back in those days, and a very prominent Hilton name is Violet Green Wayne, And can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with her?
She was my godmother. She was my mother's best friend. And when my mother was dying, she held on until my godmother got back from some trip. I don't know where she'd been, until my godmother came over to her and promised to take care of me and watch over me.
And how did she do on that score?
Oh, she did a wonderful job. I think my stepmother was always a little jealous of Auntie Vi, but but I adored my godmother. She was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And Vi had two godchildren.
Yes,
You were one, and the other one was who?
Dick Clark,
The Dick Clark of American
American Bandstand. Yes.
Did you ever get together with
No,
your
I did not.
godbrother?
No, I didn't. No, I never got. But she and Dick Clark's mother were roommates, I believe, at Emma Willard School. That's how they met.
Yeah, that was, and Vi didn't make a big deal out of that,
No.
but she did go to California a few times and caught up with the Clark family, and Dick was always there and would take them to brunch.
Oh, that's nice.
I heard little stories about that, but I don't believe he ever came to Hilton. Now, Vi died when she was 100, and I believe Dick sent flowers and perhaps for her 100th birthday, he sent a card and
Right.
a video, I believe. That was the story, but that was interesting. We just went through your grandmother Robert's home, I believe 88 West Avenue.
58 West Avenue.
58, thank you. And it's now owned by a gentleman by the name of Don and Heidi Green, and Don and his wife Heidi. What are your thoughts on that tour we just took?
They've done a beautiful job in restoring the house. I remember some of it as it was, but it's all changed. But it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they were great hosts. I went over there a couple of weeks ago and told them you were going to be in town, and they said, "Oh, by all means, we'd love to have her go through." And it's not everybody that will let virtual strangers
Exactly.
go through their house, but they couldn't have been nicer. They had coffee and cookies.
They were
and
terrific.
You got to sit on the front porch for
Yes.
a little while and catch the breeze. It was a great experience. A little bit about your grandma Roberts. Can you?
Oh, her name was Martha also. I was named after my grandma Roberts. And she was a very strong woman and a very opinionated woman, as I remember. I remember my father, she made the best hamburger and fried potatoes in the same pan. But one day she decided to make cube steak. And my father cut it up in teeny tiny cubes, and I almost choked to death on it. That was the last time I ever had cube steak.
What about the vinegar in the basement?
Oh, the vinegar, yes. My grandfather had an apple orchard and had cider down in the basement in big barrels. And of course, the cider would turn to vinegar. And as a little girl, I would go downstairs and get a bottle of vinegar and come up. And my salad at my grandmother's was lettuce with vinegar, sugar, and water, which was absolutely wonderful. But I never understood why it was diluted with water until my stepmother tried to make it for me one time with bottled vinegar. And I said to my stepmother, that's not how my grandmother makes it. She said, yes, it is. I said, no, it's not. I said, that's not the same vinegar. She said, well, no, this is bottled vinegar. I said, that's what the difference is.
Yeah, that and Myron. One thing we didn't mention is he owned all the land from Gorton Avenue back down through the peach orchards in what is now called Peach Orchard. Well, there's a Peach Orchard Street, but all the land on the west side of Lake Avenue going north was all peach orchard. And that was his farm.
Right.
And he also had a produce business where Heinrich's garage is on on Hojack Lane. And that building has just been taken down, but that was the original produce house that he had. And so that the apples and the peaches and things were all coming towards the house.
And I believe Auntie Vi told me the story that my grandfather was one of the first farmers to ship apples to England.
Oh, very possible.
And that's where the story for one bad apple spoils the barrel. Because you couldn't have a bad apple shipping to England with the other apples. They'd all get spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
I've always heard that our Hilton apples back in the early 1900s, probably up through World War I, were shipped abroad.
That could have been, yep.
We had excellent apples. I'm sure they had apples in Europe. And I know England has apples, but maybe they didn't have enough for the
Right.
population. Yeah, that's very possible. Um, Now, a little bit about your husband, your late husband, Mike Weiner. I know you have told me that he was a World War II bomber. What can you tell us about Mike?
He was a World War II bomber pilot who never got to go overseas. He signed up for every tour there was to go overseas, but he was such a good instructor, they kept him in Texas to instruct pilots,
Interesting.
under the hood instrument pilots.
And Mike passed away, what, 5 years ago?
6 years ago now, at 99.
He was
He
99.
couldn't make it three or four. He died in February, and on New Year's Eve he would have been 100, but he just didn't want to hold on any longer.
And he was quite active as a ski instructor, both in around Las Vegas and Bristol.
Yes,
Up until his mid 80s.
up until he was 86. Then he stopped teaching skiing, and he had open heart surgery, which the doctor said if it was anybody but Mike Weiner, he would not have operated on him.
Interesting. Wow. And I believe you told me that he used to golf with Bob Wegman.
He did. He and Bob Wegman were great golfers. He and Bob Wegman and the potato guy in Wayland, I can't think of his name, Charlie, the potato guy, and the guy at the shoe factory in Batavia. They were all a good foursome.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Bob Wegman has certainly made a great contribution to our dietary needs in
Yes, he
Monroe
has.
County.
Yes, he has.
And I know people that could remember him when the family just had a vegetable stand in
right.
Greece. It
Right.
all was over around Long Pond and Latta, in
Yep.
that neighborhood.
Bob was a great guy. He was a magnificent man.
So you knew him too as
I knew him also, not as well as my husband did, but I knew him, yes.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your present family.
Well, my present family is me and my daughter, who I'm moving to Arizona to be with after 52 years in the same house. So it's a bittersweet leaving, but I'm getting rid of so much junk.
And we're getting some of that.
You're getting some of that, yes. You're getting some of that junk. Yes, you are. I just can't take everything with me.
And tell us about your grandchildren.
Oh, I have 2 grandsons, and I have 3 wonderful great-grandchildren.
Well, that'll be the big payoff when you get to Arizona.
Oh, you bet it will.
To have
You bet it will.
those young people around
Right
you.
next to me, right. And they're all excited that their bubby is coming to Arizona.
Good. Well, we certainly hope you'll come back to Hilton to visit
Oh, I
occasionally.
will.
And you can tell us how you like Arizona. You're not going into the hot area. You
No,
said
I'm going into Sierra Vista, which is down by the border, but it's up in the Huachuca Mountains. And both my son-in-law and my grandson are part of the Border Patrol.
That's got to be very interesting these days.
It is. My son-in-law is a seized property specialist, and they do check the property at the border when the agent sees it, but then they take it to him for a fine-tooth comb.
I bet he has a lot of interesting stories.
Yes, I'm sure he does.
Well, Martha Jane, any other Hilton memories you'd like to share?
Well, I went to middle school in this building that we're in now. I remember that very well, up until 6th grade.
Who were your teachers? Remember any of them?
Oh, I remember Miss McDermott and Mrs. Schultz, and Miss Burke was 3rd grade. 4th grade, I can't remember.
Miss McClellan?
I didn't have Miss McClellan. Who else
Okay.
was in 4th grade?
Oh, let me think.
5th grade was Helen Stubbs.
Yeah, I remember her.
And 6th grade, I had Miss North.
Well, I had Miss McDermott and Miss Burke, so we all
Right.
had the same. Because everything was in this school.
Yes,
here,
it was.
right up until 1955, and then 1950, they opened the Quest School.
Is that what it was? Which is
Yeah.
was
I was here until 5th grade, and then I went across, and you were here till 6th.
I was here until 6th grade, and then I went across to the high school.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time and sharing these memories with us. Mike, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Martha?
Well, you're going out to Arizona besides being with family. What are some things that you're looking forward to moving out west?
Just being with family.
Just being with family. And when you were growing up in Hilton, what was the times and like in the Hilton area at that time?
It was laid back, and everybody was friends with everybody else.
Mhm.
And
My-
related.
And related, right? My grandmother had a great friend, May Curtis, who would come every Tuesday to my grandmother's house to play canasta.
Mhm.
And she would call my grandmother Matt. And my grandmother just hated being called Matt. So by the time May left on Tuesday afternoon, Martha would say, May, you're not welcome here anymore. I never want to see you again. On Thursday, the doorbell would ring, and May was at the door, and she'd say, come on in, May. So they'd play canasta again on Thursday.
Okay.
Interesting.
And how long have you been away from Hilton?
Oh, since 1965.
Okay. What are some things that you miss about Hilton that maybe since you've relocated to other places?
Just a small town and people I know, like
Mhm.
Tom Berger and David and Margaret Edelman, who's Margaret Farrow now.
Mhm.
They're all my good friends.
And I think I was speaking with you earlier. You're the class of 1964.
Yes.
Okay. And when you graduated, that was from the Quest or West Avenue School?
The West
at that
Avenue
time?
School.
Okay. And what did you do for a career? Were you a homemaker or what did you do once you graduated?
I went to school for retailing, and then I ended up marrying my first husband and having my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at RIT for a while, and then I worked at General Dynamics as a secretary. Then I met my last husband, working for him as a secretary.
Okay. And what did you do at RIT again? I'm sorry.
I went to school for retailing,
Okay.
and then I worked in the alumni office.
That's interesting. And I also worked at RIT, but not at the same time.
Right.
But
I remember we had the old IBM typewriter that punched holes
Oh,
in
yeah.
the tape. Remember those?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you made a mistake, you had to do it over
Exactly.
again. We've come a long way with Word.
We certainly have. It's
Well,
wonderful.
Something, what was that? What was those things called that, a word processor? And then we got into Word
Right.
which we're still using.
Right.
For easy, you make a mistake and you can quickly
change it.
Yeah.
Right.
That probably sounds like ancient history to a
I'm
lot of
sure
these
it is ancient
people who
history,
listen
right?
to this, but
But especially that paper that you to punch the holes.
Uh-huh.
there's a clipping here of the Great Fire of Hilton.
Oh yes.
What were you doing that day?
I think it was 64, 65.
65.
So I think I had just come back from college and was visiting, and all of a sudden the town went up in flames.
Yeah, it was probably a day not to remember.
Exactly, it was horrible. I remember the stores across from the fire. The sides were melting and dripping plastic. It was not a good thing.
No.
Did you ever go to the pleasure shop?
Oh yes, the pleasure shop and the candy kitchen.
Yep. Yep. Nick and Kula.
Nick and Kula, yes, and
Yeah.
Ethel.
And Ethel. And then across the street were Archie and Grace.
Archie and Grace, yep, the pleasure shop,
They
yep.
lived across from your grandmother.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of interesting times back then Hilton still has a lot of the same feel about it, but of course the people are different. Two or three
Right.
generations have passed
Exactly.
along, and it's bigger. It used to be 1,000 people, and now I really don't know the population.
Well, didn't
4
it
or
used to
5.
be a bedroom community for Kodak?
Yeah.
Right.
Before that, it was a farm community.
Right. I mean, I remember the apple orchards on Lake Avenue.
Yes. Yeah, the whole town was surrounded by
Right,
apple
and what was the Colomers had the
20 ounce.
the 20 ounce. They developed the 20 ounce apple, but what about the storage place? What was that
Oh,
called?
the West Storage.
Right, the West Storage.
It's
Right.
over on Colima Road and
Right.
Bojack.
Okay.
The building still stands, but it's in very, very poor condition.
What about the one on? Wasn't there a storage place on Lake Avenue also?
Yes, Ralph Palmer's.
Okay.
That was like putting the apples to sleep. They kept
Right.
the temperature at 33
Exactly.
degrees.
Cold storage.
That building's still there. And then, of course, the cold storage down at the Hilton Milling Warehouse.
Okay.
That's still standing, and that's in use for other retail things today. And that's in good shape. Yeah,
And then the house I grew up in on Gorton Avenue was half a house.
that's
That
right.
was that was the front half of the house, I think, that was moved from Henry Street.
Yep. Well, it was actually on the corner of Lake Avenue and West Avenue, and
Okay.
their grandfather owned it. It was owned by the Dunham family, and it was a very old house and a rather elegant house. And Mrs. Dunham passed away, and I think Myron, your grandfather, bought the property,
Okay.
and then he owned Hilton Service back
Yes.
in the day, which was Sinclair Oil.
Yes, it was.
And he wanted to take that lot and put a service station up. So what to do with the house? Well, they cut it in half and moved the big half over to Gorton Avenue, the part you lived
Right.
in later.
Right.
And I believe that was still owned by your grandmother and probably your father.
It was owned by my father, I believe.
And then the other half went up on Henry Street,
Right.
not far from this building that we're
Right.
sitting in here. In fact, on the way out, I'll point it out to you. And when we give village tours, that's always an interesting story to talk about. We call it the house divided.
Yes, it was.
And how they got it moved back in the day, nobody knows. But I have a feeling there must have been an empty lot between where the house stood, and so they could just take it across that empty
Okay,
lot,
right.
put it where it is, and the other half probably down Lake Avenue and up,
Sure.
and so forth. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. Any other memories that come floating through? I know you've been away a long time.
I used to sit the original Arlington Hotel down by the railroad tracks. I used to go over there with my friend Margaret Edelman and sit in the kitchen and watch her mother June make the pies that were so wonderful.
They were considered the best pies.
They were. My husband always said it was the best coconut pie he ever had.
I know my mother and her friend, your godmother, Vi Wayne, used to go to lunch at the Arlington quite often back in the 70s and 80s and 90s even. And my mother loved desserts, and so she would order her dessert first so
Yes.
she could get the best pie, and then whatever else, hamburger or salad. Yeah.
No, June Edelman made the best pies in the world. They're so good. The crust was to die for.
Yeah. I remember, too, at my mother's service or funeral, June Edelman made about 20 pies because
wow.
they had luncheon down at Crescent Beach.
Right?
And I believe they took the pies in there and served them because it was just sort of a tribute to the fact she
that's
loved
great.
those pies.
Right.
Yeah. Back to you, Mike. Any thoughts or questions?
No. I always like learning more about Hilton because I'm from Hilton. Vi Wayne, she lived on West Avenue, right?
Right. 125.
Okay. We used to do some painting every now and then in the summertime. Could you tell me a little bit more about what she was like? I mean, obviously she was very close to you.
She was just a wonderful woman. She told great stories. She would every Wednesday, because the drugstore, when she worked at the drugstore was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And she would take me into the drugstore, pick out a toy, whatever I wanted for the day. Then we'd go back up to her house and I'd play up at her house for the day.
And I'm not going to say on camera or your age or anything, but you look wonderful.
Thank
Do you have
you.
any secrets for aging gracefully? Because
No.
it also sounded like your late husband was
Oh, he was
in
wonderful.
really good shape too.
He was in very good shape up until 2 weeks before he passed.
Mhm.
He was in super shape.
Okay. And how about you? What keeps you
What
motivated?
keeps me? But now my daughter and my grandkids keep me motivated. But I don't know. I can feel myself creaking.
Mhm.
Back to Vi, there are a lot of stories that she told, and she presented a very dignified stature in Hilton. Everybody liked her. She traveled the world. She bought the best clothes in New York. When she was 90, she took the Concorde to London.
Yep.
And saw 10 plays. She really lived well. But when she was back in Hilton, she was just one of the people. And but there was another side to Vi. And you probably the one that knows some of those stories about the time she got put in jail.
Oh yes, the one that was so funny. She graduated from Buffalo University of Buffalo 25 years after her father did in pharmacy. She was probably one of the first women pharmacists in the country. And it was winter and she was going to school, so they hooked their sleds to the back of the streetcars, which was a no-no. You couldn't do that. And the police came along and threw her in jail. And her father, the only thing her father said about it was Violet. It must have seemed like a good idea at the time. And she had a ball and she had a good time in jail. She said the other girls were crying and hollering and screaming. She said, I sat and played cards with the guys all night long. But that was Auntie Vi.
She also drove a truck during World War II.
Yes, she did.
Any thoughts on that? I
No,
just know a little bit about that.
That's all I know is just what I've heard. But she also, when she was just a young girl, her grandmother, I believe, lived in Cleveland. And she drove the car, and I can't even imagine this 14 or 15-year-old girl driving a car from Hilton to Cleveland to pick up her grandmother and bring her back home.
Because her grandmother didn't want to take the train.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And what else would buy? Let's see.
Oh, the first time she had to make a pill for her father in the drugstore, they made their own medicine at the time.
Pestle and mortar.
Right, pestle and mortar. And she filled a capsule, and I guess it was pretty big because her father looked at her and said, "Well, Violet, what horse are you going to feed that to?" And I can just hear Mr. Green. He had a very droll sense of humor and very droll voice, but it was, "Well, Violet, what horse are you going to give that to?"
Yeah, Mr. Green. Ironically, the owner of the house that you grew up in is also Mr. Green.
Yes.
So that was kind of interesting. Probably you and I are the only two that can remember Mr. Green.
Probably.
He died in 57. And I remember one time he was down at our house for dinner. There was some sort of dinner party going on. I was in the background, but everybody was trying to figure out everybody's age. And they were all being kind of coy about it. And somebody said, well, Vi, how old are you? And she said, I forgot what she said. She didn't want to answer it. And then so they asked Mr. Green, well, how old is Violet? Or when was she born? That was it. When was Violet born? And he leaned back and said, I guess she was born in the night. And she said, Father never let me down.
Right.
He was a very shrewd guy. Even though he was droll and very slow speaking, he was a very sharp businessman. He built many of the buildings on Main Street. The building on the corner of Mariah Street and Main Street, which is an apartment building, he built and owned and collected the rents. He built what the candy kitchen was in, all those brick buildings that did not burn. His drugstore still stands after two fires that were built of wood. He finally built a brick. Smart move. And he built all the houses on Hines Street.
Right.
When the Hines company built the Hines plant, he knew that there were going to be workers needed there. And so I don't know who built them, but there's a real interesting story that kind of passed along that a lady came into the drugstore and said, Mr. Green, I said, is that house still for sale up on Hines Street? I don't remember the number. And he says, yes, I've still got one available for sale. She says, well, I'm kind of interested in that. He says, well, here's the key. Why don't you go up and look at it? And she did. She went up by herself and looked at it. And then she came back and said, well, I'll take it. And he said, well, it'll be $1,000. Don't forget to, go to the courthouse and record your deed. Real estate was so simple back then. $1,000 for a house. You could take the key and go through it and kick the tires. She wanted the house. He said, okay, it's yours. Sign this. And that's all there was.
Much easier than the time that I'm having selling my house now, believe me.
You said New York State's the hardest
New York
place.
State is awful because you still need an attorney to sell a house, which is ridiculous. Every place else you need a title company, here you need an attorney.
Well, maybe we'll catch up one of these days.
Maybe, who knows? That's why I'm glad to be leaving New York State. Not leaving my friends, but I'm glad to be leaving New York State.
Back to you, Mike.
Sure. You mentioned Gordon Avenue. Okay, that's where I grew up. So on Gordon Avenue too. When you went and visited that house today, what was it like going back into the house with nostalgia and all that?
That was the one on West Avenue. The
Okay,
58
I'm
West.
sorry. Okay.
It's okay, 58 West Avenue. It was very interesting. I mean, like I said, a lot of it's changed, but the ceilings are still the same. I love the ceilings.
And the floors.
The floors are still the same, except for the register that my grandmother used to help my earaches with is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them about that. That's kind of interesting.
Oh, my grandmother, I would get earaches as a child. And my grandmother would take a wool sweater and put it over the register, and that's what we called them back then, registers in the floor. And when the heat would come on, it would heat up the woolen sweater. And she would put eardrops in my ears that smelled like school paste. That's the only way I could say well, they're school paste. So she would put the school paste drops in my ear and then lay me down on the couch, which was a horsehair couch, and put the sweater under my ear, and my earache would be gone.
Old time remedy.
Old time
That
remedy.
worked. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we could think of a lot more stories, but
Oh,
I know
yes.
you got a long drive ahead of
Yes,
you,
I
so
do.
maybe we should conclude. But thank you very much for coming back to Hilton. We've had a wonderful afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And thank you, Mike, for making this podcast a possibility.
You're
Great.
very welcome, and good luck to you in
Thanks,
Arizona.
Mike. Thank you.
Don't make yourself a stranger.
I won't. Thank you.
Keep in touch. We'll leave emails, and
Right.
also I've got to write the podcast down
Yes.
for you. Thanks
Sounds
very
good.
much, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
So this has
Thank
been
you.
Mike Heiss with Dave Crumb and Mary Jane
Martha
Jane
Half right.
Weiner. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank
Be
you for
safe.
having me. Thank you.